Welcome to SALT. Aspen is not with us today. She is going over to do her job doing the summer step program. She's a TA, so she has to go to all the events and kind of help the summer students, go through all their activities and stuff. So that's why I have my laptop and the iPad over here. I am running central broadcasting at the moment. So I am checking to see that we are actually broadcasting and making sure everything's working the way it should. And we are. Yay, it's up. So there we go. Things are working.
Oh, notice Brett did both of the jobs tonight.
Still
I
have
didn't
this
even
one
look
over.
to see if we were on the internet.
Nope.
I was like, Brett does it all.
Figured I could handle that one. So anyway, yeah, it's been a fun week. I'm teaching summer school, so I have a small group, 7 kids, who are here for a 3-week crash program in mobile and emerging media filmmaking. So it's been fun. We're getting into the last week, and Aspen's been my TA along with one of my other workers, Brandon, and they've been helping the kids put their little short film together, and we're filming it, and this week is their last big push to get it done. So if you follow along, if they get them done, I'll probably post them to our Facebook and to the Facebook stuff. You can see what our summer students, what film masterpieces they have put together for the summer. And it's been a lot of fun. Been a good group of kids, but does get school started early because we have this, and then I don't know, not much time, and then we have colloquium for the faculty, and then school starts. So it's almost like school's already started for me. Summer's been over now for about 2-3 weeks. But anyway, that's what's been going on here. And today we're telling stories.
Yes, I'm going to tell another story about my mother. I've told a couple already. And some of you might remember, I think we told the story, I think, for Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. She did grow up in a farming community. She was born in 1935, so that was a while back. And she wasn't expected girls weren't expected to get any more than an 8th grade education. But she went ahead and did all of her high school by correspondence. And then off she went to college. And then, of course, basically she wanted something better than how she had grown up. And of course, then she met my father, and he was everything that she had not grown up with. He was a very quiet man. He just didn't get angry. He just didn't raise his voice. And he went to church with her, and she thought he was absolutely perfect. And you know what? They got married, and he just stayed as perfect as that. He just didn't get angry. He didn't raise his voice. And when they had their first baby, she was a nervous first-time mom, and he took on some of the child care things and was very helpful and such. And she just thought that he was wonderful. So when my sister and I were probably about 5 and 6 years old, my dad worked night shifts at a hospital, and he started coming home late from work. I'm not sure how often, but he was coming home often enough to be noticeable. And of course, she'd ask him where he was, why he was late and stuff, and he generally had an answer of some sort. But at some point in time, my mom shared this with an elderly gentleman who was our next door neighbor. And he must have been at least in his 70s, maybe even his 80s. And he's like, well, he's having an affair. And my mom was like, oh, no, he is definitely not having an affair. But the seed had been planted. And so she started thinking about it. And one day while he was taking a nap, she drove on over to the hospital that he worked at. She found his locker, and she looked through it, and she found some notes that a female coworker, had written to him. And they weren't incriminating in particular, though there was a couple of things that she thought, oh, what exactly does that mean? So she went home and she showed him the notes that she had found, and he's like, it's nothing. We're just friends. So she decided to take it one step further, and she went out, she bought this big old 1950s black car for a whopping $15. I mean, $50.
$50, yeah.
Yes. And she must have parked it some distance from the house, of course, so that it wouldn't be noticeable there in our driveway. And she bought a cheap wig as well. So one morning she woke my sister and I up early, put us in the back seat of the car, and drove us on over to the hospital parking lot. So we sat there and we waited for the shift change, and then the workers started coming out the front doors of the hospital, and eventually my dad walked out with a group of people, and he was talking to a female coworker. But my mom thought, you know what? It's a free country. Coworkers can talk to each other. It doesn't mean that they're having an affair. So the woman got in her car, my dad got in his car. My mom by then had told us to lay down in the back seat. She had put on her wig, and off everybody went. The woman was driving first, my dad was following her, and my mom at a distance was following both of them. They ended up on a country road that turned to gravel, and eventually came to just a dead end in the road. And when my mom got there, the other two cars were parked next to each other. My dad had already gotten out of his car into her car, had his arm around her. And of course, my mom got in the car and she was talking to them for a while. And then she got back in the car and we drove back home. And when my dad got home, of course, my mom asked, who do you want? You know, do you want her or do you want me? And he said, well, I want both of you. And my mom was like, oh, well, that wasn't exactly how she pictured a marriage would be, least of all hers. You know, she had expected everyone in the relationship to be faithful. So eventually she did file for divorce. And my point is that sin separates. Sin separates us from God, it separates us from other people, and it separates us from who God created us to be.
Yeah, I mean, we both come from divorced families. Mine not as, I don't know how Mom found out. Mine was a little more of, like, your dad had just the one woman at that point, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine was, Dad had lots, I think, of, affairs. I really don't know which one it was that my mom found out about first. But I didn't find out till way later. Like, how old were you when y'all did the car thing?
I was probably 5, maybe 6. My sister would have been 6, maybe 7.
And how old were you when they divorced?
It was pretty quick after that.
Pretty quick after that.
It didn't take too long. I would say sometime in the next year.
Okay, so you were still below 10.
Yes.
Yeah. Mine, I was out of it. I just graduated high school. And I tell everybody, when I tell the story, and I had no idea. And I remember after they divorced and it all came crashing down around me, I was visiting one of my friends. It was during the summer, and so school was out, and they were at the same academy I had been at, and I went over and I was like just talking to her, and I had no idea. I had no idea this was coming. And I remember her telling me, like, Brett, you didn't know? And I was like, no, I didn't know. She said, Brett, I knew. She's like, I was like, how did you know? She said, Brett, we all knew. And I'm like, who's we all? She's like, the entire school. And I'm like, the whole academy knew my parents were going to get it. And I had no idea. And my brother knew, my sister, I mean, everybody. Not that they had said, they were just like, well, they're getting divorced. Like, they knew it, and then I said I found out after the fact, so I had to deal with it, after the divorce and after everything was, but it had a huge impact on me and my dad, like I remember distinctly having this weird emotion where when I was around him after that for a while, it's really hard to describe. He no longer felt like my father. I mean, literally, like this was a man I knew, but there was the emotional connection was completely gone. And I remember being in that and feeling that and thinking, that's weird. I wonder what that's about. Like, how did that happen? But it really was just like, there's this guy I know, and it just had no emotional connection whatsoever. Which was to your point. And it was a very physical, emotional, tangible feeling of complete break and separation. It's just hard to describe. And that's what, sin does. When you talk about that, it makes me thinking about like, no, you get it in theory, you get it in thing, but I mean, I remember feeling it, and we worked through it later, and that's a whole other story. We actually worked through it, and we got close again, and he was my dad again, and that's a whole other story. But the choices of sin, and all areas of life, that's its goal, is to break your connection with other people and with God and with yourself, and sin separates. And for us, it was, you don't ignore it, you don't sweep it under the rug. We had a confrontation, and that's where we got it out. When we talked about it, and healing began, and forgiveness began, and that was, forgiveness was the reconnection, or the beginning of healing and reconnection. And it's just good to know that even though sin separates, that God has already made the very first, even before we sin, even before we choose to sin, God has already made the step toward us to heal and forgive. Like he told Peter, before Peter denied him, he said, Peter, I know you're going to do it. I've already prayed for you. Before you've even done it, I've prayed for you. And when you come back, we're going to heal, and we're going to get you going again. And so that's kind of the promise of God of, he already knows what we're going to do. He's already chosen to forgive us. He's already prayed for us. And that's the solution to sin. So there you go. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And it's, going to be a short salt today, just because Aspen's not here and we have to move on. And I hope you guys are staying a little cooler than we are here in Texas, because oh my word, it's been triple digits, and I guess this next week it's not. It's cooling off.
I found down into the 90s.
Yeah, I found it interesting that it said and a cold front moved in, which means it went to 104 to 95. It's like, that's a cold front. But I'd like to get outside and do some salt outdoors, but not till it cools off a little bit. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us. Hope you had a good Sabbath.